I'll call this meeting to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. First on the docket, Senate Bill 175. And Senator Deeds, I'm going to take you up real quick, but this one's quick, and there are people who have been here to hear this. Senator Stanley.
Mr. Chairman, first, there's a substitute, and I'd just like, before I take some action on this bill, have the substitute accepted and voted on by the panel.
Could you all pass that
Move the
substitute
substitute.
Second.
Motion properly seconded to adopt the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
That substitute was a workout with some of the issues that we had, and certainly Senator Eben helped me as well on those. After looking at this and discussing this with certain people and seeing the action that was taken on a bill similar to this in the House and the House subcommittee, what I'm asking you to do, Mr. Chairman, is this bill be carried over for the year, but with a letter and recommendation that a study be conducted. There have been some issues as to whether a 3-day hold period would incur to the pounds cost, or might increase the numbers of those animals in the pounds, which certainly is not what we're trying to accomplish here. And so based on that, I think we should have more information on whether that is in fact, a supposition, or it could be in fact a possibility or truth. So for those reasons, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the amended Senate Bill 175, amended in the nature of a substitute, be carried over for a year with a letter to VDAX, I guess would probably be the best place to go.
Okay, from the chair.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Stanley, as everybody has heard, wants to carry this bill over for the year and get some direction from VDAX. Based upon that, is there anyone here who opposes that would like to address that? Okay, nobody wishes to oppose it, then the bill's before us. Is there a motion to carry the bill over for the year in a second and send a letter to VDAX getting direction on this? Can we do that on the electronic board, or do we need to do it by voice vote? Okay, open the roll.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, thank you. Senator Deeds, you've got several. Come on up.
I've got a couple of bills, and they both have substitutes, and they have line amendments to the substitutes. But I'll make it easy. The bills say exactly the same thing. They're about just different subject matter. 698 deals with erosion and sediment control. 699 deals with stormwater management. They're both pipeline bills. They're not designed to stop the pipeline projects or to slow them down. They're just designed to give DEQ additional tools so they can react if there's a problem. If you want to adopt a substitute, or you just want me to explain them first, explain.
All right, can we get a motion on the substitute on 698? Motion properly seconded to adopt the substitute on Senate Bill 698. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed,
Okay.
no. The ayes have it.
I appreciate that. Now, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, as I said, these are agency bills, and they both do exactly the same thing. This 698 is about erosion and sediment control issues. The bills both establish processes for DEQ to issue stop order instructions during construction of natural gas pipelines if DEQ determines that a company's land disturbing activities have caused adverse impacts to water quality, or that an imminent adverse impact to water quality is likely as a result of such land disturbing activities. When DEQ determines there's been an adverse impact to water quality, or that an adverse impact to water quality is likely to occur as a result of the land disturbing activity, DEQ may issue a stop order instruction without advance notice or hearing, requiring that all or part of land disturbing activities on the site be stopped until corrective measures are taken. DEQ must promptly, within 10 business days, provide the company with an opportunity for an informal fact-finding proceeding to affirm, modify, amend, or cancel the stop order instruction. The amendments and in the substitute and in the amendments to the substitute are the result of a lot of work between all the parties in interest and DEQ. They're made to narrow the scope of this legislation to construction of transmission pipes that measure no more than than 36 inches into, or those that are 36 inches in diameter and larger, and that covers basically 3 pipeline projects. The 2 that are proposed, that one crosses the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and the Transco Pipeline. I think that's all that they cover, this bill covers. The amendments provide detail to the process for the informal fact-finding that would occur after the stop work instruction is issued, including putting the 10-day business deadline on DEQ. If you've got technical questions about the amendments or the bill,
Senator Dietz, do you have amendments that you need to be reported on 698?
I think staff has them,
Let's
yes.
have those, let's report those amendments first.
So, Mr. Chairman, the amendments should be, I believe, on both Senate Bill 698 and 699. But there are 6 of them, and I'll read them out. On line 15, after natural gas, insert the word transmission, so it reads natural gas transmission pipeline. Also on line 15, strike the words that has a mainline transmission pipe measuring. Third line amendment on line 15, strike the number 24 and insert the number 36, so that that whole line reads natural gas transmission pipeline greater than 36 inches in diameter.
Okay.
On line 18, after determines that there has been, strike and insert a substantial. So that is, there has been a substantial adverse impact.
Okay.
On line 19, after imminent, insert the words and substantial, so that it is that and imminent and substantial adverse impact. And then the final line amendment will be on line 35. After the word occurred, insert the words or other appropriate court.
As you can see, those first 5 amendments basically narrow the scope of the bill. The last amendment deals with the section where if the companies agree, the aggrieved company can file suit against DEQ, and that was basically to set up the action in the locality where the problem occurred. But the other appropriate language means, as the code otherwise provides, if DEQ is going to be sued, they have to be sued in Richmond. So they can be sued in Richmond or in the locality where it occurs.
Is there a motion on the amendments to the substitute?
So moved.
Motion properly seconded to amend the substitute as reported by staff. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Okay, any questions of Senator Deeds on Senate Bill 698?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Ruff.
who defines substantial adverse?
Well, as I understand it, that was a matter of significant discussion among the various groups that negotiated that language. I think DEQ at first defines substantial when they make the stop order, but then that's certainly going to be an issue that's going to be litigated if the company decides to take the matter to court. But DEQ is, I think, first responsible for determining whether there's a substantial problem.
Senator
Mr.
Ruff?
Chairman, currently DEQ does not have the ability to stop something that is substantially adverse.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ruff, according to this is an agency bill. There's a gap in the law. If a locality, if a pipeline exists totally within the locality, and the local agencies deal with soil and erosion issues, stormwater management, the locality would have the ability to step in and stop it, but DEQ does not. That's what we're trying to clear up in this law. I think it's just a loophole that we probably should have fixed years ago, but the issue never really arose before now.
Thank you.
And Senator Deeds, you're not doing anything, as I understand it, that would come under federal preemption. So
Mr. Chair, I don't think it does. No, sir, because we're talking about, even though these are interstate pipelines, we're talking about things that occur only in Virginia.
okay. Any other questions of Senator Deeds? let's try it this way, Senator Dees. Does anybody oppose this bill at this point? I know you've worked hard on it and got a lot of stakeholders together.
I don't think so, but I don't know. I've not taken a poll.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Anybody who'd like to speak in opposition to this bill? Now's your chance. Do you want witnesses to testify?
No, sir. No, we don't have, only if you want to. As I said, Angie Jenkins is here from DEQ, and she can answer technical questions about the bill or about the effect of any of the amendments.
Can we amend this bill so that DEQ has this authority only if David Paler continues to be the director of DEQ? I think everybody has such a high opinion of him that everybody feels comfortable with it, but nobody else is doing it.
Second.
Motion properly seconded to report the substitute as amended. Clerk, please open the roll. Senator Chafin? Okay.
12 ayes, 3 nays.
All right, bill reports.
Okay,
Now,
Mr. Chair, 699 is the same thing, except 698 dealt with soil and erosion. 699 deals with stormwater management. But frankly, other than those words, it's word for word the same. The substitute's the same and the amendments are the same.
okay. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Properly second to adopt substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion properly adopted to adopt the amendments to the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, I'm gonna try this the same way. If there are no questions of Senator Deeds, is there anybody who would like to speak in opposition to this one? This shows the faith that everybody has in Director Paler, doesn't it? Is there a motion on this? Motion properly seconded to report the substitute as amended. Clerk, please open the roll.
Did you mean not to vote?
Did you give me your proxy? Oh. Thank you. I didn't know I had your proxy. Okay, your bill report, Senator.
12 ayes, 3
Thanks
Thank
nays.
you,
very much.
Senator Deeds. All right, let's see. Anyone other than a patron here? I mean, a member here? All right, Senator Lewis?
Ben, are you gonna be here? Ask David. He's got.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have Senate Bill 696. After a great afternoon of scintillating conversation on compactness and the integrity of political subdivision boundaries, I can think of nothing better to end your day than carbon allowance auctions. And so that's where we are. This
All right,
is
tell us about cap and trade, Senator Lewis.
this is the known as the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative Bill. Let's talk a little bit first about where we are from a practical standpoint and where this bill would seek to take us. Where we are, as most of us know, through Executive Order Number 11, signed by Governor McAuliffe. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess we better adopt the substitute first, Mr. Chairman.
Let's distribute that substitute and adopt it. Thank you. Motion properly seconded to adopt substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. All right, substitutes before us, Senator Lewis.
By Executive Order 11, initiated by Governor McAuliffe, supported by now Governor Northam, we're going to start a carbon reduction program involving auctions through the executive authority through DEQ. What this bill seeks to do is to give legislative input into those auctions, and also, from my perspective, and I think from a number of the members' perspective, more importantly, where the proceeds from these auctions would go. If you look into the bill, you can see a detailed analysis or detailed proposal as to where the proceeds from these auctions, estimated at perhaps $200 million a year, are suggested to be directed, starting on line 44 of the substitute. 35% of the revenue will go to the Coastal Resiliency Fund to deal with sea level rise and flooding. 30% through the Virginia Saves program administered by Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy for energy efficiency programs. 17% again through Mines, Minerals, and Energies for the renewable programs. 10% for Southwest Economic Development, and then 5% for something, another, in addition to sea level rise, something very important to me is reliable funding for agricultural best management practices, which has been a very important issue in recent General Assemblies, given the peaks and valleys approach to funding those all-important BMPs that we've taken over the years. This provides, I think, about $10 million a year estimated for best management practices. So that's where it starts. The RGGI system was initiated in 2005. It was up and running in 2009. There are 9 states that participate, Maryland and Delaware being, I think, our closest neighbors who participate. I am told that they all still have state economies above the third world level, that their citizenry all functions and goes to work and raises their kids, and they're thriving, even after having joined the RGGI program. That program for those 9 states, since the auctions began in 2009, have generated about $2.9 billion in revenues for those states. 30,000 jobs have been created and provided $10 billion in health benefits from reduced emissions for those states that participated. This is a free market approach to a problem. It is not a tax. It is not an edict. But again, a free market approach. The allowances, the price of these allowances is set by the marketplace. Typically, an allowance is 1 metric ton of carbon produced. And there's also an opportunity for generators to seek other means in which to achieve the goals other than buying allowances on the auction market. We have our Secretary of Natural Resources here, who I think also, Mr. Chairman, would like to speak to the bill and also perhaps offer the committee some information about the impact on some of the other states that have adopted the RGGI system.
All right, Senator Lewis. Are there any questions of Senator Lewis regarding this bill first? If not, then what we'll do is we'll set 5 minutes for each side because I suspect there'll be folks on both sides of it.
They're just pros, Mr. Chair. Nobody's against it.
Yeah, that would be an amazing thing. Why don't those that are in support of this come on up? Mr. Secretary, come on up and tell us your thoughts on this.
Good afternoon, Chairman Stewart and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. On behalf of Governor Northam, I'd like to offer my support for Senate Bill 696 and specifically thank Senator Lewis for introducing the bill. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, has proven that the power of the market can drive down both pollution and electricity costs while generating revenue we can use to improve our economy and our environment. The 9 RGGI states, led by 5 Republican governors and 4 Democratic governors, have harnessed the RGGI market to generate nearly $3 billion in positive economic impacts, as the Senator mentioned, $10 billion in health benefits, and thousands of jobs. We're already moving ahead with the regulation to reduce carbon pollution from power plants in Virginia by 30% over 10 years, but we need your help to maximize the benefit of our efforts for all Virginians. Senator Lewis's bill gives you, the members of the General Assembly, the chance to ensure that the revenue generated from buying and selling carbon credits goes towards severely underfunded economic development and conservation priorities instead of going right back to the power plant owners. The version of the bill you have in front of you today would generate roughly $200 million, again, as Senator Lewis said, per year to invest in projects to create clean energy jobs, assist with economic development and workforce training for Southwest Virginia, make our coast more resilient, lower customers' utility bills through increased energy efficiency, and help farmers implement best management practices to clean up the Chesapeake Bay. These funds would be generated under the regulation as well, but would stay with utility companies instead of being used to the benefit of the people. Governor Northam believes that leaving this revenue on the table is a bad deal for Virginia, and he hopes you'll agree. I appreciate your willingness to delay consideration of Senate Bill 696 from last week to this week, and I ask that you vote to pass the bill out of committee today so we continue working with stakeholders and all of you to refine it. I'm happy to do my best to answer any questions you have, but I may defer to my Deputy Secretary, Angela Navarro, to address some of the technical aspects of the legislation. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senator Stanley.
Mr. Chairman, a question to the Secretary.
Yes, sir.
You know, in all of this, you're generating funds which are then used to find cleaner solutions for energy, which of course is laudable. But ultimately, the funds that are raised that come from the energy companies isn't. I mean, you know, the elephant in the room is isn't that paid by the ratepayer and passed on? Those kind of taxes are passed on to the ratepayer eventually anyway. So the ratepayer ends up being the one to foot the bill for this.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So in the research that we've seen on this, the case under a situation where you have you know, the revenue from these auctions just going back as it would under the regulation to the power companies, we think that a lot of that revenue will go back to shareholders rather than ratepayers. Under the RGGI scenario, we'd be able to give ratepayers a benefit and over time bring down their rates by putting in place energy efficiency projects, that reduce the demand for energy and drive costs down.
All right. Senator Stanley, does that take care of you? Any
Yes,
other
sir.
questions for Secretary Strickler?
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming and telling us about this. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Mathias, City of Virginia Beach. We've had this initiative in our legislative program for about the last 3 or 4 years, so we hope you all vote favorably for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kevin Maurer, Virginia Catholic Conference. We also support this measure. We want Virginia to be a leader in the coming energy transition, and especially we want to look after our vulnerable populations in Hampton Roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, member of the committees, my name is Karina Bell. I'm representing the Sierra Club Virginia chapter, and we support the bill.
Thank you. Yes,
Good
ma'am.
afternoon. My name is Dr. Samantha Adut. I'm a pediatrician. I'm here with Virginia Clinicians for Climate Action. We support this bill as being significantly beneficial to the public health. States that have participated in RGGI have experienced more than 8,000 fewer asthma attacks, 400 less cases of bronchitis, and between 300 and 800 less premature deaths. And we believe that Virginians deserve all of the public health benefits of participating with this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Carla Loeb with Segura Solar. We're the largest residential solar installer in the state, employing directly and indirectly about 100 employees in the state of Virginia. We are in support of this. We believe that it would incite market transformation for the clean energy sector, and hope you will strongly consider passing it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Afternoon, Chairman and the committee. My name's Harrison Wallace. I'm with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and we support the bill and reaffirm all of Secretary Strickler's statements on the economic benefits of this bill and the need for our sea levels to be checked in Hampton Roads.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Francesca Costantino with the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. We're based in Northern Virginia, and I'm from Vienna. And I just think that politics as usual and incremental changes and measures are really not going to do what's needed to be done. And it's really a nonpartisan issue. Our bases, our military bases, are threatened on the coast from the sea level rise. So that's a national security issue. This particular approach by empowering market forces is something that conservatives should really be able to get behind, because you're not choosing the technology, you're just leveling the playing field and letting market forces work. So we support this bill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm the Executive Director. My name is Chelsea Harnish, the Executive Director of the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council. We are the voice for the energy efficiency industry here in Virginia. We represent businesses, local governments, and advocates alike. We really appreciate the energy efficiency carve-out in this bill, and we do support the bill and ask you to pass it today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Mike Town, Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We support the bill.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Will Cleveland. I'm an attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center based in Charlottesville. I work on clean energy policy, trying to keep energy rates low while also protecting the environment here in Virginia. We support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Walton Shepard on behalf of the Natural Resource Defense Council. I'll point out that most RGGI states' economies are growing faster than Virginia's. This is a great economic opportunity for Virginia to catch up with those states in economic growth and job creation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, afternoon. Gary Harris, Managing Director for the Center for Sustainable Communities. We make communities greener, cleaner, healthier, safer, and more climate resilient. And we do that through an equity and environmental justice lens. And we fully support the bill as proposed. We see it clearly promoting clean energy jobs, more energy efficiency programming, also a keener focus on lower income programming as well. Also, because we weren't able to push forward the Clean Power Plan at the federal level, this is a great substitute and a great initiative at the state level. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, that's all of the folks who wish to speak in support. Are there those that have opposing views and would like to speak in opposition to this? Now's your chance.
J.C. Hernandez with Americans for Prosperity. We provided a statement just waiving opposition.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to wait for questions till after?
Whenever you're ready.
For Mr. Hernandez? I got your handout, sir, and I did have a few questions. And I was just going to say, you know, whether you think climate change exists or is caused by humans, whatever that is there a benefit to the public health by reducing pollution in Virginia? I mean, I would think there is.
You know, we've seen that in other areas where in states where we've had cap and trade, it's not necessarily a correlation, but you know, what we've seen is that this really affects lower income areas. People just can't afford, prices go up. So that's, you know, our statement's there, and you can review it.
Okay, if I might follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Evans.
Sir, you mentioned lower income areas, and I've seen studies about how areas that are lower income are often the ones that are located closer to power plants that are not as clean as others, and that asthma attacks, bronchitis, so forth among minority kids or people who don't have the funds to live in other neighborhoods are up. So I just wanted to share that observation. But my question, though, really is, now that large-scale solar is cost competitive, can't manufacturing of solar equipment, installation of such equipment, energy efficiency work provide some economic benefit to the state?
Well, you know, we have some other research that we can sit down with your office and share with you if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Thank you.
That take care of you, Senator Evans. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Keith Martin with Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We are opposed to this bill primarily for two reasons. One has to do with electric rates. Those 9 states that belong to the RGGI actually have 41% higher rates than the national average, while Virginia right now is about 11% lower than the national average. We also have a concern that we have cap and trade in the state that would encourage power companies to actually provide power, build power in other states adjoining us that do not have cap and trade, and actually import them into this state, which would also account for jobs and for the economy. So for those two reasons, we oppose this bill.
I want to make sure I understood. You said that the electricity rates in those states are 44% higher?
41%, sir.
41%.
So the 9 states that are part of RGGI, their average electric rates are 41% higher.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? If not, any questions, or Senator Lewis, would you like to add anything else?
Question for Senator Lewis.
Senator Marsden, I think, was first.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Lewis. Just for my edification, the allowances. Who is to determine what the allowances are to start this auction process?
You mean the value?
Yeah, the value.
The auction sets the value.
But I mean, are individual point sources or whatever given a certain amount that they can trade to begin with?
That's my understanding, yes.
And who establishes what those initial?
I believe it would be DEQ under the, I'll let Angela answer.
Can you repeat the question?
Who sets the allowances, the initial?
The initial, so the initial allowance allocation
is determined in 2020, and that's set by the regulation that DEQ is moving forward with.
The who?
That DEQ is moving forward with.
Okay, Senator Mason.
Mr. Chairman, I just wondered if there were any utilities in the room that would be interested in speaking to the bill or opining on what they think of it? Because Senator Lewis, I think they'd like it.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Murray for Dominion Energy. I'll try something new and actually choose my words carefully here. We don't have a position at this time. We appreciate the amendments that are shown in the substitute. We have stated for some time that we expect federal or state carbon regulation, and we're reading this measure in light of the ongoing regulatory process. We're mindful that the legislative process allows for input in a more expansive way than the regulatory process does. I guess put another way, the legislative process has both the executive and legislative branch involved, and the regulatory process has only the executive branch involved. If it is the committee's will to report the bill, we're going to be committed to continuing to offer suggestions to structure legislation in a way that makes the most sense for our customers, and in particular, we'll offer our best analysis for encouraging clean energy jobs in Virginia, and that's what some of the amendments before you speak to that the administration has offered, and we appreciate that while sort of minimizing incentives to buy off system. So,
all right, thank you.
That's where we're at now.
Senator Lewis, anything else?
Just to wrap up, if I could, Mr. Chairman. First, let me, not to contradict my usually good friends at the chamber, but there are some conflicting, there's statistics and then there's statistics. It's our understanding that of the 9 RGGI states, 7 of those states actually have lower residential rates than Virginia does. And that the reason that the average of the 9 is higher is because I am told of natural gas price constraints within that region, not necessarily because of participation in the RGGI system. So it's all in how you look at it and whether you use an average with 2 or 3 spikes included in there or whether you look at the broader picture. So there is a broader picture when it comes to the rates. Number 2, I think it is telling that our friends at Dominion have no position on the bill at the current time. And number 3, I want to go back to my original remarks at the outset about looking at where we are and where we can be. And where we are is with a series of carbon-reducing initiatives through an auction system under executive order through DEQ that are going to take place later this year and will take place, I guess, for the next 4 years at least, and probably difficult to unwind beyond that. And our opportunity as legislators to address some really significant needs in this Commonwealth with the proceeds from the auctions is set forth in this legislation. And again, from my region, certainly flooding and resiliency issues are huge, and this provides a big step forward for those. And also from my region, agricultural best management practices for a cleaner Chesapeake Bay are given a big leg up in this bill. And so I think that's important for us, regardless of what our feelings may be on the auction system or cap and trade or whatever. The reality is the reality, and we as legislators, as Bill Murray indicated, this is a process. And this, should this pass through this committee, obviously, we'll go through many more changes before the final bell sounds in March, on March the 10th. So I would urge the committee to pass this bill through and let it work its way through the process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Lewis, I want to applaud your efforts, and I'll tell you, I support what you're trying to do, because all of those goals that you're trying to get to, I think are things that each and every one of us up here supports. But for me personally, I in good conscience can't put the burden on the backs of the ratepayers to pay. I mean, this is $250 million, and there's just no question about it. The ratepayers have to pay that. And so that's what I wish you could do is find another way to come up with that money than putting it on the ratepayers, because I'd vote for it. But I can't. I just can't in good conscience stick the ratepayers with that $250 million as much as we need it for other things. But that's just me. But anybody else, want to make a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Clerk, open the roll.
Seven
Ayes, 8 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the committee.
Thank you, Senator Lewis. Is there any other motion? We're just going to leave it at that. Okay. Is there a second to that? Second. Motion properly seconded to pass the bill by indefinitely. Clerk, please open the roll again.
Nine ayes, 6 nays.
Okay. Thank you. We don't have any non-members. You want to strike that, Senator Dance?
Having voted on the previous side by which the motion was granted to PBI, this bill, I now move for its reconsideration.
All in favor of reconsideration, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. All right, Clerk, can you open the roll again? This bill is to pass the bill by indefinitely. Welcome, Senator Dance.
8 ayes, 7 nays.
Okay, thank you. If there are no non-member patrons out there, let's see. Senator Chafin, you're next on the list. Senate Bill 859.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is what I refer to as the airbow hunting bill. And this comes to, I brought this bill to the committee's attention because there is a new means of hunting big game out there, and it's called the Benjamin airbow. Now, the Benjamin airbow is not really a rifle or a bow. It's a hybrid, and it works through the use of employing pneumatics. It's a pneumatic archery weapon. It's superior to a crossbow in many, if not all aspects, and it's safer and easier to use than a crossbow. It's just not listed in the code as a legal weapon to use for hunting enthusiasts of big game. There's no bow. There's no string. It's a pneumatic archery weapon.
Senator Chafin, I had one question about this.
Yes.
So it's like a CO2 powered bow versus pulling it back like you would a typical bow.
Yes, sir. It is to a certain degree. It is. I mean, there is a cocking mechanism for it. It delivers an area through. It delivers an arrow. Through compressed air.
And so my question was, is this restricted to the archery season for use, or as a bow is, or could you use it any time?
I believe the bill is.
I wasn't sure.
I believe the bill is restrictive to archery season, Mr. Chairman. So it's scoped like a rifle, has a trigger and a safety like a rifle, and many crossbows. It's relatively easy to load and to cock, and a person who might have some physical diminished capabilities would be able to use this type of weapon. The air shaft is a .357, so it's like a .357, a 35 caliber type bore, and it is propelled by the same compressed air technology as an air rifle.
Okay. Any questions of Senator Chafin?
Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Evans.
So last time the last time I used a bow and arrow, I would think I was in a camp when I was in elementary school. So I'm not familiar with this. But I wanted to ask you, I read the bill, and I had two questions. So best to understand, this allows localities to prohibit its use or restrict its use, but it does add it as, as a hunting weapon. Right now, if someone has one of these devices, it's just not in the code. So what happens if you use one now? Is there any restriction or?
Well, you can use them, Mr. Chairman. You can use this for target practice. You can use it for any amount of sporting, but you cannot use it to take game with currently because it's not listed as an approved weapon to take game with.
Okay, and final question, Mr. Chair.
Senator
So
Evan.
in terms of for the animal, it's no more, whether you consider it inhumane or humane, it's based on your description of it being similar to, I think, a .35 caliber. It's not much different in terms of the impact on the animal when you're hunting, right?
Mr. Chairman, I think that this, as has been described to me, I shoot a bow. I shoot a Matthews bow, and I've hunted with a bow for more than 30 years. That's a compound bow, and I shoot it around 300 feet per second, an arrow, a shaft. This shoots at more than 400 feet per second. So it's a much flatter shooting weapon, more accurate out to a longer distance, and likely delivers a quicker kill.
Thank you. And when it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion, but I don't know if there's other.
Senator Evan.
I wanted to move to report.
Let's just make sure there's no opposition to it. Is there anybody here who opposes this bill? With that, I think your motion's in order.
I'd like for it to begin slow, kill somebody with it.
Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Clerk, please open the roll.
$15 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
All right, Senator Hanger, you've got several.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, on that last bill, I'd just like to make sure that it's illegal to kill somebody with that weapon. I'd hate to go that way.
I think we're okay. I think it's illegal.
It's illegal already?
Got a law.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 576, I'll take up first. Senate Bill 576, I've had some consultants working with me who are doing good work all over the state, but notably in the southern rivers. And we adopted some legislation a few years ago which provided an alternative to approvals for when you're working in more than one jurisdiction to submitting soil and erosion control and stormwater management plans.
Senator Hanger, can we?
Yes, I got a substitute. You want that? Yes, I do have a substitute, if y'all would adopt that.
You distribute that. Motion properly seconded to adopt substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Substitute's before us.
As a matter of clarification, Mr. Chairman, I would say to the members that the substitute doesn't do anything differently than the original bill, but it does pick up some additional sections because, as you're aware, we passed legislation a few years ago to consolidate some programs, and some of the regulations don't go into effect until July 1 of this year. And so this bill addresses both areas so that there will be uniformity. Mr. Chairman, with the committee's indulgence, I'd like someone to speak to this bill briefly if you've got time for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Shannon Varner here on behalf of Resource Environmental Solutions. We are, or they are, a company that is involved in the mitigation banking business, doing restoration in wetlands and streams, species, and, as Senator Hanger said, and nutrients. So it's a wide variety of areas where they do work. One area where there's a growing interest is in stream restoration, not necessarily for impacts associated with the development, but in order to help reduce nutrients and sediments for purposes of MS4 permits or for stormwater regulations. As Senator Hanger said, since about 2006, DEQ has been authorized to approve annual standards and specifications for wetland and stream mitigation banks, but only those types of banks that are used for specific permits for impacts to those resources. This would just add the authority for them to approve those kinds of standards and specifications for stream restoration when that stream restoration is done for nutrients or sediment reduction.
Okay. And any questions of the patron or the witness? Do you have others that would like to speak to this, Senator Hanger?
Not specifically, no, I don't.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on behalf of this? Not, is there anyone in opposition? Anybody who's got a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill, and this shouldn't have to go, no, this doesn't have to go to finance, does it? Does not. Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Clerk, please open the roll. Okay, that one reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next one I'd like to take up is Senate Bill 582. And Mr. Chairman, I do have a series of line amendments to propose to this particular measure. Clerk, do you have these amendments? Okay.
Is there a substitute? Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess before you adopt the amendments, if I could just give you some context on this. This particular measure is, I guess you would call it an environmental measure, but it involves different parties, constituencies within the environmental group. And I guess it's in the aftermath of some tough decisions that had to be made as far as transferring certain properties that were already in open space land use that were required to be substituted. In this instance, it was for a pipeline that was coming through. But the point of it is, in looking at it, we wanted to make sure that the appropriate interests were being served when something like this was being considered. With the amendments, I think we basically have agreement amongst parties that have been looking at this. There is still a little bit of concern or hesitancy, I guess, that I've assured the parties, and they've agreed that if it needs an additional clarifying amendment, that if we advance it to the House, that they would offer it over there to get the total comfort level for all the stakeholders. But I assure you, Mr. Chairman, this has been the subject of a lot of conversation between all the stakeholders in trying to come up with an appropriate solution for this to basically make sure that we're evaluating these opportunities appropriately with the appropriate level of concern for the conservation and intent of landowners as they put their land in certain uses, but also allowing opportunities when necessary to make this difficult decision for swapping out land. Mr. Chairman, essentially that's it, as there may be people here that would want to speak to it.
Let's, if we could have staff report those amendments. I know you passed them out, but for the benefit of the public, it would be good if we reported those amendments first.
Mr. Chairman, there are 3 line amendments, and the first one is on line 19. After the word "the," we're going to strike the remainder of line 19 and through "to the" on line 20. So that is striking "the applicant for conversion or diversion shall submit to the" is all stricken. Okay. That's the first line amendment. Line amendment number 2 is also on line 20. After the words "public body," insert the phrase "may require the submission of." So that sentence will read, "The public body may require the submission of 1 materials." And the last line amendment on line 34, after the word "land," we're just going to insert a new sentence that reads, "The monies for the creation of such fund shall be provided by the applicant for conversion or diversion."
Okay, is there a
Mr.
motion
Chair.
on the amendments?
I move those amendments, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Motion properly seconded to adopt the amendments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
And Mr. Chairman, I certainly want to, if there are those here that, to make sure I've stated this correctly in terms of the conversations that had that want to speak to it, I would certainly want them to speak to it now.
Are those here that would like to speak in opposition or concern first? I don't think so.
Well,
anybody want to speak in support of it?
Mr. Chairman, there have been a lot of
Mr.
conversation on it, and I think I was trying to make sure you understood there was still a little bit of hesitancy that there was a need to clarify something, but they were willing to go ahead and basically allow it to proceed, and we'll have a further conversation, which will involve specifically, I think, Delegate Lee Ware on the House side, who's done a lot of work with these types of easements and conservation lands.
Okay. All right, if there are no questions of the patron, is there a motion? Is there a second? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. I'm going to ask the chairman of finance. Did this one need to go to finance?
I'm not aware that it would, Mr. Chairman. There are no state funds or appropriations involved with this.
Okay. Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Clerk, please open the roll. Okay, that one reports as well, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final one is Senate Bill 950. And, Mr. Chairman, I would share on this particular bill dealing with the Department of Environmental Quality Review of pipeline construction, upland impacts, and supplemental reviews. It was not quite ready for prime time today, but in deference to your scheduling and the need to move the agenda today, I've worked with DEQ, and they are in a position, I believe, if they would like to offer some clarifying and technical amendments to help this bill along with the expression that the administration would be interested in supporting it if we can adopt those. We were in a quandary, Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, about what to do about that, and this does have to go to finance. So I would certainly encourage the members if we want to discuss this
Chairman,
now and then send it.
Just tell us briefly give
Sure.
us a little, yeah, I understand, and I apologize for being sort of unflexible in holding these passing these bills by, but we got a lot of coal ash bills next meeting we need to deal with, and I didn't.
Right, and that is fine, Mr. Chairman. Basically, it is an effort to allow or require, in this instance, some additional oversight from the Department of Environmental Quality for activities related or associated with federally regulated natural gas pipeline projects in areas, upland areas, such as I deal with up in the valley and through the valley there, and other sensitive areas where there is some possibility that result in a discharge to state waters that would not necessarily be covered by Federal Clean Water Act certification. So it differs from the bills that Senator Deeds had, in that this requires a review in those sensitive areas, basically to require some approval and certification for those sensitive areas. There is one element of the bill that DEQ specifically wants to address, which I'm agreeable to, but they don't have their amendment here right now, because you have to be careful, because in an interstate pipeline, such as we're talking about in this instance, FERC, the feds have overriding ability to approve, and so we have the sensitivity was there that if we in fact tried to put something in here that would essentially override FERC's ability on this, or their approval process, then we'd be in violation, I guess, of some constitutional issue there.
Federal preemption.
Beg your pardon?
Federal preemption.
Right. So that's what Director Paylor wants to address in part, so that we have something that would be functional for him And other than that, it is basically additional review, which a lot of the citizens throughout the Commonwealth, particularly in the areas that I represent in Western Virginia, want to ensure, not to impede. In fact, it potentially, I don't think, other than giving more objective criteria for the State Water Control Board and those making these decisions, I don't think there would be any impediment to the current 2 pipelines that are under review, other than the fact that it would be basically giving them more objective criteria.
So DEQ supports the concept. You all need
They
to work.
support the concept with their amendments that would remove that little problem I have in there.
So then I guess what I'm hearing is you'd like to see this bill reported, re-referred to Senate Finance, and you can work on those amendments along the way and get it.
That is correct. That is correct. Right.
Let's see, is there anybody who opposes this first? Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Clark representing the Virginia Oil and Gas Association. We're not opposing the bill, but we are not in a position to support it at this point. We have been scrutinizing this bill. I think the committee knows there have been a lot of pipeline bills introduced this year that we've been working on, including the 2 that you dealt with earlier with Senator Deeds. We'd like the additional time to review this and also to consult with DEQ about the changes that we're hearing they would like to make. And so if you're going to, if this committee will to send this to Finance, we'd look forward to the opportunity for a little bit more time to work on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak with a concern or an opposition to it? If not, do you have folks that would like to speak for it, Senator Hanger?
There are people here that could speak for it, but if the committee is predisposed to send it on to finance, we won't take the committee's time.
I think that's what.
Okay.
All right. Motion properly seconded to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance. Clerk, please open the roll. Wow, you got all of them today.
15
Senator.
ayes, 0 nays.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Senator Carrico, did you already kill my bill in your committee?
No, we haven't,
take up
but
yours?
I've been holding it for just a few minutes to see what happens.
I'll follow you back. How about that? Senate Bill 507.
507, Mr. Chairman, is dealing with stormwater management. And just to give you a brief background as to why I have this bill here, I had an occasion to meet with a group of developers in my region and talk to them about how Bristol, Tennessee, and Johnson City and Kingsport and places that are adjoining us are being able to have all these developments take place and have us to be able to be in a competitive nature to compete for some of these developments because of the economic distress that we have in the region. One of the things that they brought up in that meeting, in that stakeholders meeting that we're having, was a lot of times they can't compete with the cost for development because of the requirements under the water management regulations that requires them to build these retention ponds that have the same acidic soil makeup as the region to be comparable to the Chesapeake Bay region, and they have to ship either soil in or they have to do a expensive mixture. In order to do that, they have to check these retentions and have all the setbacks that are required under it when just across the state line, it's all based upon the Tennessee Valley Basin where all of our water flow. And it's just like I was taught when I was a young man, when you're doing plumbing, certain things flow downhill, it don't flow uphill. Where I live, it's not going to flow to the Chesapeake Bay, it flows to the Tennessee Basin. And so because of the fact that that they're at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to projects that are competing between Virginia and just the Tennessee border, because the Tennessee Basin regulations are a lot less strenuous and a lot less costly, we're at a disadvantage when it comes to competition and being able to compete for those projects. Now, That being said, I know that the Cattlemen's Association talked to me because I did include farmers, and same difference with them. We have some of the largest cattle farms in the state, in Wytheville and Washington County, and these individuals are held to those same standards too around their cattle stalls and so forth, where they work the cattle, and the retention ponds that they build also. So I think there probably, if you look favorable on this, there probably is an amendment that the cattlemen would want to do just so they don't run afoul of the federal best practice management opportunities that are out there for the farmers to be able to utilize to do watering systems to keep the cattle out of the streams and so forth. But
Do you have an amendment or staff? have
I
an
do not
amendment?
have, I don't even know if they're here or not, but I can get you that amendment. It basically keeps us working on the same standard as we were working on, recognizing the fact that these best management practices that we put in place for farmers should be recognized as we move forward. So I don't know exactly what that language would look like, but I did tell them that if we did move forward on it, that I would make sure that that was covered.
Any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Carrico,
Senator Mason.
I understand, since you're not flowing to the Bay, that you don't want to live up to some of the things that may be necessary there, but Tennessee, other states, this says non-point source pollution and localized flooding and stream channel restoration. Certainly other states have requirements to try to protect the streams and the beautiful rivers and streams you have in your area. Are you willing to match up what they're doing to protect the streams and the rivers?
Yeah, the way that in the meeting we talked about that, we talked about the fact that we have got to do something environmentally to protect whatever is out there on the Tennessee Basin, where the stream is going to flow to. We're going to have to abide by what Tennessee's rules are if we're going to do this, and that was an agreement. That is where the problem is. It is the soil in which you're using and the retention that you're building is more compatible to the Tennessee Basin than it is to the Chesapeake Bay. So I'm not having to spend the cost of having to ship in either soil from here or having a soil scientist come out and see what kind of mixture I can do to build that. It is more advantageous for us to do it because it matches more with what Tennessee is, and the cost is a lot lower.
Mr. Chairman, one final. So
Senator Mason.
I read this to say you're almost exempted from the whole shebang.
I think we're still under the stormwater management regulation, but not to the extent of what the Chesapeake Bay.
Not the enhanced ones that were adopted after
Right.
2014, I think, to deal with the issues of the TMDLs and that was
Still stream and
currently
river
under.
protection.
Right, we're still under the stormwater management, but we're not what 2014 put into place to have to. I mean, we were operating fine until 2014, and then all this stuff came in, and we had to bring in all the soil and mixtures that had to take place.
All right, any other questions of the patron? Senator
Mr.
Martin.
Thank you. Senator Carrico, everything ends up somewhere. And
especially from Arlington.
Yeah. I'm close to Arlington, but not quite there. The water flowing, out of the Tennessee region there ends up in the Gulf of Mexico, does it not?
I've never followed the stream, but I'm sure it does. I think into the Mississippi down to the Gulf of Mexico. Now the new river flows north. It goes to the Monongahela in Ohio.
I guess my concern is that, if we keep going to the lowest common denominator and dropping down to whatever the state with the most permissive attitudes or most permissive regulations, and then say, well, we'll go with theirs because that puts us at a competitive disadvantage. Eventually, it just ends up in somebody's bay or estuary or whatever, and, we're not holding ourselves to a very high standard here.
Well, we're still regulated. We just don't have the same soil type. The cost is trying to get the mixture and constant monitoring so that any drop in that acidity of that soil that they use to do the retentions is where the cost is starting to incur. And I'm not a soil scientist or an expert in this field, but I sat down with the developers, and this is what they're telling me, that this is one of the things that they're facing when it comes to building developments around that region. That what we do in Virginia, even though everything that we do is flowing to Tennessee, is a whole lot more costly than what Tennessee is required to do.
All right, do you have folks who'd like to speak to this?
No.
Is anybody who'd like to speak in opposition to it? Come on up.
She told me earlier when we were out on a boat.
That's right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I do in fact speak in opposition to this bill. I would first like to thank Senator Carrico for writing it in a way that makes it clear, or at least I interpret as his support for bay restoration efforts, and I thank you for that. We are concerned about the kind of race to the bottom that Senator Marsden mentioned. Many of you know, you will recall the 5, 10, almost 10 years of work that Virginia, its agencies, its technical experts, its scientists, its NGOs, its regulators spent developing the stormwater management program that resulted in rules that were finished in 2011. And then this body, this committee, the Senate, the General Assembly as a whole, postponed the implementation date for almost 3 years to give folks across the state time to come up to speed with the new requirements. They didn't do that work, as you all know, willy-nilly. They did it because the consensus of the scientists and the technical experts was that the pre-2014 standards were not adequate to protect our streams. Yes, they were not adequate to protect the bay, but they're not adequate to protect the streams. And some of you will have seen some photos that we sent around of south side water basins where you can see the kind of blowing out of stream sides that can occur where you have development that is done, adding impervious surfaces and so forth, that leads to streams that are blown out, that carry sediment and nutrients and other pollutants to the water body, whether it be the bay, whether ultimately will be the rivers flowing west and then ultimately south to the Chesapeake, the Gulf of Mexico. They don't work. They don't work as well as our scientists know how to make them work. And so when we look at this bill, while we understand that it's very well intentioned, what we see is an effort to say the result is we're going to have clean water in 2/3 of the state. Terrific. But what about the third that is outside the watershed? It seems to me that's the kind of policy that is not wise, and indeed it goes against what you all have done for many years. For example,
but let me ask you this
sure.
question, and I agree with you to a large extent, but Senator Carrico makes a good point. What about being competitive with those in Tennessee? I mean, what do we do for his area so that they are not put in a position where they can't compete with the folks in Tennessee because of the regulations? How do we address that?
So the issue of unfair competition or competition that is complicated by different conditions, you all know better than I, is one that we see across the state in all kinds of different contexts. If we have, for example, a regime of somewhat stricter requirements in 2/3 of the state and somewhat less stringent in 1/3 of the state, that also sets up an unfair kind of competition. In other words, among developers in the state. There was an article in the Virginia Pilot recently about Virginia Beach, I believe, one of the Hampton Roads cities, concerned about, in other words, the idea that they would have, being in the Bay watershed, certain requirements, and others in the south side would not have the same strict requirements. So you can never have an entirely even playing field in water quality or in other areas. But I think what we should strive for here in Virginia is an even playing field in terms of water quality, an even set of requirements for our developers and our communities across the state. So that's what I would say. Everyone deserves clean water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one quick question? We all agree with
Senator
that.
Mason.
Sure. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. What about addressing a soil content discussion for retention ponds? Maybe their soil runs off more and causes more problems, but is there a way we don't force them to import soil? You know, soil in Williamsburg is different than soil in his hometown. So can we address that?
So I would say, I acknowledge that I'm a lawyer and not a soil scientist. So I'm going to make a recommendation that perhaps Senator Carrico's people, the constituents, might be able to find some assistance by speaking with our colleagues in the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Perhaps there would be an opportunity to substitute a different set of best management techniques that achieves the same water quality result as those that they're familiar with now. So in other words, I think surely that is possible, but I can't answer in a specific way. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, yes, ma'am. Please come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Adrienne Catula with the James River Association. We have similarly served on the regulatory advisory committees for the stormwater regulations for numerous years with a variety of stakeholders from the development community, conservation community, et cetera. And we believe that all of the streams in Virginia deserve the same protections. I would echo the comments of Ms. Sanner and urge you to vote against the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Shannon Varner with here again on behalf of Resource Environmental Solutions. And I think, you know, through the process that was going on in 2011 and through there, one of the things that the committees looked at was how do we offset some of the costs that are associated with the new pending regulations? And part of that was how do we enhance our trading program? And that resulted in legislation out of this body that helped with trading. Resource Environmental Solutions 2 years ago helped implement legislation to authorize a process by which trading could be utilized in the southern rivers. Since that time, in the year and a half since that has occurred, there are 21 banks that are down there now. 11 of those are from Resource Environmental Solutions, which entails a very heavy investment.
Are you selling your company, or does this apply to this bill some kind?
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but the point is the private sector has made a significant investment in environmental restoration to produce nutrient offsets that could be utilized instead of these on-site ponds. I don't know the soil issue, but they should be available to use instead of that at a much less expensive or at less cost. And so we're obviously worried about the investment that has been made in the southern rivers based on the current standards. If the standards are lessened, there'll be less private investment, there'll be less competition among the industry that I'm representing, and the prices will go back up. They've actually come down, 30 to 50% in just the year and a half that it's been available down there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Paylor, Director Paylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The administration does oppose the bill. The only point I'll make, or 2 points. One is these rules were put together for local water quality and not specifically for the Bay. And I don't have a great answer to your question, Mr. Chairman, other than to say maybe it's time for me to talk to Bob Martineau, my counterpart in Tennessee, and tell him it's time for them to come up to standards. So.
Is it anything we can do for Senator Carrico's district to help? I understand what he's trying to get at. Is it something that you can work with them on to try to come up with an answer?
Well, I'm certainly always happy to have more in-depth conversations, and we're happy to do that. My primary point is that these standards were not just for the Bay, but I absolutely would commit to having conversations with anybody to see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
thanks.
thank you. Okay.
If I could just
questions?
follow up
Yes,
just
sir.
real quick.
Yes.
Of course, I don't want to belabor it, but I don't think there's anything that's going to take us out of the management regulation piece, number one. It's just the watershed. And, you know, it'd be nice if David could talk to Tennessee and make them do what we have to do, but I found out that doesn't work well in Tennessee. The other thing is the question that Senator Mason brought up about, you know, the soil. It's my understanding, talking with, and the gentleman who was up here talking about the 11 places he has around the region, if you stockpile this soil, if you bring it in, it's only good for a certain period of time. You can't just stockpile this. So that means you're either going to bid on this knowing that you're going to have this mixture. So you're going to have to make your bid X number of dollars higher because you're going to have that, and that you're responsible once you leave it. Once you build this project and leave, you're responsible to come back and check those retentions and make sure they're staying in that range. And it works well whenever you do get a project, but you know, developers don't work that way. They look on a cost analysis basis. So that's the dilemma that they have, and that's why I brought it. And I just think it's a disadvantage for us that live on the border when it comes to that. And Tennessee manages theirs, and their cost is a lot lower than what we.
I understand. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Sounds like a court.
Is there a second? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. I suspect this probably has to go to finance, Senator Carrico, because there could be some implications. So is that amended to report and re-refer to Senate Finance? All right, motion properly seconded to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance. Clerk, please open the roll.
Seven ayes, 7 nays, 1 abstention.
Sorry.
That's as close as that was closer than I thought it was.
That's pretty good. Are you going back? Have y'all shut down?
Yeah, I've got 19 bills, so you're in good shape.
Okay, thank you. I think Senator Carrico is going to get with DEQ and see what kind of answers they can come up with. Let's see, Senator Marsden, you're next on the list. Senate Bill 854.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 854. Here is the, Mr. Chairman, here's the problem that's been, that we've had. We have a number of nurserymen and also nursery stock dealer folks who aren't paying their license fees on time. And so there is no penalty for not doing that, and it's taking VDACs a tremendous amount of time and effort to track these folks down, and very often these payments aren't made until July or August, and it's cost them a lot of time. So what we'd like to do is basically give them a grace period of 1 month, 30 days. The fees are due January 30 or December 31st, and give them an extra 30 days, but then provide for a late fee, if you will, so that that would incentivize them to get their payments in on time and save VDAX the time to do this, and hopefully nobody will have to pay the penalty. But there are 270 nurseries and 2,300 nursery stock dealers in Virginia. The nursery stock dealers do pretty well. They only have a 1.9% late rate, but the nurseries themselves have something like an 18% late rate on payments. So that's what the bill does, and Larry Nichols from the VDAX is here to...
Is this a VDAX bill?
Yes, this is a VDAX bill from the administration.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry Nichols, Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. As Senator Marsden indicated, Senate Bill 854 is an agency bill, and the administration supports this bill. He summarized it very well. It basically allows us to assess a late fee for any nursery that's late in paying their annual nursery.
Can I ask you a stupid question?
Sure.
Yeah. Why do we have to license nurseries?
Amen.
Well, primarily they're licensed because we have an inspection service that goes out to inspect the nursery stock every year. It's for a consumer protection issue because that nursery stock is going to be sold, but it also prevents the spread of disease. Our inspectors goes out there if they find an insect or a disease, they can stop sell that nursery stock. And then in addition, it also allows for the interstate movement of that nursery stock. Nursery stock is not regulated on an interstate basis, but all states have a very similar law to Virginia's, which is that the nursery stock has to be inspected before it's sold.
So is that like a uniform act that everybody adheres to so that you can sell it interstate?
Yeah, yes, it is. And actually our law has a stipulation that nursery stock can come into Virginia and be sold provided that nursery stock is inspected and it's from a licensed nurseryman in that particular state.
Okay, any questions? You have any other witnesses that would like to testify?
Nope, that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else
I
who'd
just
like
think
to speak in favor of this? Anybody who's in opposition to it? There is a motion to report properly seconded. Clerk, please open the roll.
Nine ayes, 5 nays, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you, Senator Marsden. Senator Mason.
Yes.
You've got
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senate Bill 520.
520, yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you and members of the committee are aware of the challenges with the Eastern Virginia confined aquifers. DEQ had reached a deal with the 14 largest users back at the end of the year. And from the reporting, it was some astounding statistics that they shared with me that some of them had declined as much as 200 feet in the decade since World War II. They told me there was one that was 140, 50 feet above sea level. Now it's greater than 100 feet below. So they are trying to, and I am asking on their behalf, to take non-agricultural irrigation wells and prohibit them outside of the superficial aquifer. So agriculture is excluded. So I want to build a house on a 4-acre lot and I want to irrigate it. Rather than allowing me to drop the well all the way down to the confined aquifer, I would be required to do it in the superficial aquifer. This is just to reduce the load down below. It replenishes much faster and much better, and they will work with any applicant to make sure that the superficial aquifer has an acceptable amount of water. Or there may be another, but we're just trying to prohibit people going to the confined. Now, I feel like there's not a lot of opposition to this, but I do need to tell you that the golf courses aren't big fans at all. They don't like it. And these are golf course, now, but a couple things to remember here. Because they drop all the way to the confined, and then they irrigate the entire golf course from one well. Yes, sir.
Senator Mason, the target group that you're trying to get at, how many gallons a day are they withdrawing?
Well, it'd be under 300,000 other than
as a group, how many, what are we really accomplishing with this if we were to enact this into law?
We're trying to keep me from building my house and dropping a well that deep when I don't need to.
Let me ask this question a different way.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to evade the question, sir.
We are withdrawing from the Potomac aquifer, what, 100 million gallons a day or some huge number? And half or more of that is being drawn out by two entities?
Right. That's right.
So are you, so my question is, why aren't we dealing with that? Why are we dealing with
Well, we
this?
did deal with that, sir.
This is literally a drop in the bucket, right?
Over time, more and more, and Mr. Paler might want to speak to it, but it's every little bit counts kind of thing, I believe, and I'm not trying
to give you a hard time, but
No, I'm not answering the question very well.
It bugs me that we know what the source of the problem is, and yet we're kind of rooting all around it, not getting at the source of the problem.
Director Paler might want to speak to the deal that they reached at the end of the year, but
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I guess the best thing I can say is 40%, close to 40% of the withdrawals from the aquifer are unregulated. And so, and that's the fastest growing sector of use of the aquifer. So even though we've made huge progress in getting a 52% reduction in 90% of the permitted users, we could wipe out that that gain if we allow the unregulated to continue to move forward.
How much are you going to get at with this bill?
The growth is of the unregulated is about 1 MGD per year. Now, we're not going to get that whole MGD out of this. We might get 25% of that MGD. That's just a speculation.
So it literally is just a drop in the bucket.
I didn't say that. I said it's stepping in the right direction. And let me also say that the way the bill is structured, anybody for whom the surficial aquifer is insufficient will still be able to go to the deep aquifer to get what they want. This is simply saying, you know, the best thing you can do if you're watering grass is to use the surficial aquifer. It replenishes every year with rainfall, as long as it rains. It replenishes. You'll get the water that you need, and you at least won't have an impact. And actually, it'll cost you less to drill your well.
And again, I got to apologize, but he's just hit a sore spot with me on this bill. Not because of this, but because we're not addressing the real problem. We're trying to put restrictions on homeowners and others when we're not really dealing with the problem, and it's no affront towards you, David.
Mr. Chairman.
Can you dig a surface well without a large water tank and actually irrigate anything with it? So if you've got a surface well,
right,
you got very little water that accumulates in it. I mean, I grew up in a poor rural area. I'm very familiar with surface wells. So you literally would have to build a storage tank as well in order to use this for irrigation. It just seems like to me it's putting a huge burden on a small group of people that aren't causing the problem.
Mr. Chairman, you might choose to put a storage tank in. You might choose to drill a couple of wells instead of one if it's a very large user. As I guess I would reiterate that this bill is intended to encourage the use of the surficial aquifer, and there's a provision in there that says if the quantity and quality of the surficial aquifer is insufficient, you get to go deep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions of Senator Mason? Mr. Mason, you have anybody else that would like to speak to this?
Not on behalf of, sir. I haven't seen the golf course. Okay, here he is. There you go.
Anybody who'd like to speak in opposition may also come on.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Brent Graham. I'm the Director of Golf Course Maintenance at Two Rivers Country Club in Governor's Land in Williamsburg. I'm speaking on behalf of the Country Club and also the Virginia Golf Course Superintendents Association. As this bill is currently written, we cannot support it. We would like to be put in the same category as the ag and be able to go down to that well. Currently, we are in the well application process at Two Rivers Country Club. So our well permit went up in October 2017. Right now, the DEQ is going over our well permit. One of the stipulations that we may receive when we get that well permit, that new well permit, is we have to put a new $150,000 well in to replace our current well, which has nothing wrong with it other than the DEQ doesn't like the construction of it. There's a gravel pack around our well that allows some of the superficial aquifers to drain down to the Potomac aquifer. This bill, as it's written, confused me a little bit because the whole reason for us having to drill a new $150,000 well was we were, some of the water from the top aquifer was going to the bottom aquifer, and they wanted to protect that top aquifer. So I saw this bill, and it seemed like they were trying to protect the Potomac, and it just seemed opposite from what we were hearing from the DEQ. So we are not in favor of this, and we would like the same designation as agriculture in the golf courses.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Rob Wilmans. I'm here on behalf of James River Country Club in Newport News and also on behalf of the Tidewater Turfgrass Association representing golf course managers in Eastern Virginia. We also can't support the bill as it's currently written. We're looking for an exemption for golf course users. As golf course managers, we are all schooled in agriculture. We all have degrees from agricultural schools. That's what we do. We grow crops, and we feel like we should be part of the agricultural exemption. The golf course superintendents have worked hand in hand with the DEQ, DCR, VDACs, forming the best management practices document for Virginia golf courses. We've worked in conjunction with all of these different groups in the past, and we feel like that, you know, we could have had a little more input in the way the law was written. We are stewards of the environment. We are out ahead of the curve for most of the country in what we do, and we feel like if anybody should be allowed to have an exemption, we should be included in that, the same as the agriculture people.
All right, thank you. Okay, Senator Mason, anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
you
those
wanna
are two
add?
spectacular golf courses, well-maintained, environmental stewards, and maybe I'll confirm with the governor's land gentleman, but they are grandfathered. This is new golf courses being built east of 95 on a go forward, and there have been zero in the last 5 years. We're trying to keep golf courses open, so I realize
Do I
should stop
misunderstand something? Does this just affect golf courses? Or
Well,
does this
they're
affect
the only ones objecting, sir. They want to be agriculture as they grow turf. And they're,
I know a little bit about this. It's really hard to get new golf courses to open anyway.
Sir, it's hard to keep them open.
Because you've got to have 100,000 rounds a year or something to even keep them going.
We have 2 or 3 in jeopardy of closing right now in the Virginia Peninsula.
But isn't the largest impact to the homeowner? Isn't that where we're going to see the largest impact to the homeowner?
It's targeted for them to stay to this official, yes, sir.
And who's going to police that?
The well drillers will be under the requirement to drill just as officials, so, I mean, I guess they could break the law and continue to drill deeper, but it's cost more money to drill a deeper well.
All right, I've been dominating the, is
Well, I apologize. I should stop while I'm behind with you, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to report.
Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Clerk, please open the roll.
Hey, can you hit me, please? Yeah, I tried, but it's still under Dave.
8 ayes, 7 nays.
All right, your bill reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Yes, sir.
Having voted on the prevailing side by which we passed Senate Bill 854, I would ask that we reconsider that vote.
All right, all in favor of reconsidering the vote on 854? That was right, yes. Please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. All right, clerk, can you open the roll?
Mr. Chairman, this was the nurserymen and nursery stockmen's grace period of 30 days and a $15
For the license renewal.
for the license renewal, and a $15 penalty for paying more than 30 days late. And that's the
And
bill.
it was a motion to report the bill, as I recall.
That's correct.
Okay. So we've reconsidered that vote. So the motion to report is now before us. Clerk, please open the roll.
Eight ayes, 7 nays.
Okay. Bill reports. The only other thing we have is Senator Vogel had a hemp bill, and I have been informed by several folks that she wishes to strike that bill, and then she would like to be chief co-patron of Senator Dance's hemp bill, if that's possible. Can we do that? Okay, let's roll Senator Vogel's bill into Senator Vogel's 599 into
Roll.
Senator Dance's. Roz, do you remember what your bill number was?
He said roll.
Roll.
Let's roll it in, man.
I think our staff can figure that out. Senator Dance's hemp bill. All right, roll Senate Bill 599 into Senate Bill 247 and list Senator Vogel as the chief co-patron with Senator Dance. Can we do that by voice vote, or do we need a vote on it? Want to vote? All right, is there a motion to that effect? Motion properly seconded as described. Clerk, please open the roll. All right, with that, committee member, rise.